Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Asking for a Friend podcast. My name is William. This is my wife, Jul, and we are here to answer your questions on all things marriage, parenting, dating from a Christian perspective and what that looks like.
Yes, and as we continue to go through this series at church, we've just seen all different kinds of questions and hope to get to answer some more of those today.
Yeah, appreciate you guys texting those in. As always, you can text your questions in to 94000. We would love to answer them for you. So we're going to jump right in today. All right, question number one. One of the scariest things in dating for me is the waiting. People often say that the waiting is worth it, but that can be very difficult. How do I balance trusting in God's timing, knowing that there is a possibility of staying single and not being disappointed in that?
Okay, so yes, to your point, we know waiting for anything is extremely difficult, challenging.
Sure.
Can also be very beneficial, and it's definitely easy, for any married person, happily dating person to be like, oh yeah, just keep praying, just keep waiting. The right person's going to come, It's
like telling a new parent, like, oh, it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. It has very little value in the moment, especially if you've like truly been waiting. You're really like seeking the Lord and you want to find the right person. That's really tough. So I think for people, this isn't everybody, but I think there's kind of two categories, right? Two sides of it. I think there's some people that kind of have the tendency to jump into every relationship that kind of comes their way, whether it's through, dating a bunch of people and kind of in hopes of like, okay, this is the opportunity. This is the opportunity. And, they're a little less cautious, maybe about taking the time to get to know the person. And obviously that, can end poorly because you end up just dating a lot of people, but it didn't work out. And, after a few more dates, you see kind of why you guys aren't compatible and whatnot. And then the other side of that are people who are extremely cautious to date, hesitant to date.
Sure.
And kind of like paralyze themselves into this place where they really think that like, nope, God's gonna clear as day, show me the person, bring them to my doorstep, and we know too, like there's definitely some vulnerability with dating and getting to know somebody and some putting yourself out there and knowing that we talked about this on another podcast, but there's some failures along the way. You're going to fail. It's not going to be necessarily, the right person after one date, or clear if it's the one person after that date. But so I think to answer this question and what we kind of talked about is finding the balance in that, in between the two. Like there's definitely, a balance of caution with dating, but also some vulnerability there, putting yourself out there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's like most things, there's a balance of you don't want to just jump into things too quick. You don't want to wait for Prince Charming to come and sweep you off your feet and have this fairy tale story. And so you do have to be able to, especially when you've been hurt in the past or whatever, like continue to responsibly put yourself out there. And I think the biggest thing around it too is, continue, like our job here on earth is not to be married. Like our job here on earth is to glorify God and all that we do and tell people about the good news of Jesus Christ. And so as we are doing that, as we are pursuing Christ and as we are pursuing that path, then that the right person will come along. So like we talk about this a lot of is don't compromise. So even in that dating where you feel anxious and rushed and kind of like, oh man, I think this is it. I think it's like, hey, take your time. Don't rush. Don't compromise.
Yep. Like
we talk about this with, dating through seasons of life, dating through seeing what's ahead. So it's this state of just being in prayer and being content with like where you're at and trusting God with where you're heading.
No, absolutely. And like God knows the desires of your heart, right? Mm-hmm. Like he wants to give you those desires. And I think for people, anybody, it's easy to get caught up in what we think it was going to look like or what we think it should look like or that person should be like. And sometimes we're our own worst enemy and can hold ourselves back from that.
Yeah.
So I think the prayer really just becomes like, yeah, Lord, your will, your way, the person, through your eyes, Jesus. And it really just puts your heart in the right place, I think, for that waiting period.
Yeah. And it's a constant battle.
Absolutely.
Just like you're waiting on anything else. But it's a big thing to wait on. So I get it. We totally get it.
And it really is worth it. I mean, you can not wait, and you can make, decisions that they're ultimately, it's not going to lead you to where you want to go and to where you want to be. Sure. So keeping that in mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. We are often, and this applies to William and I, we are often in conversation about when to give your child or your teenager a phone. And as parents, you want to love and protect your child while also balancing their exposure to technology and things that are detrimental to them.
Yeah.
So how do we do this? What's the answer? Tell me the age and how to do it.
I got the answer. We're good to go. No, it's a constant conversation, especially as our kids get older, their friends get phones, technology, gosh, even gaming consoles, like the whole technology bit as a whole can be a lot. And so the first thing is just remember your guiding principles. Remember, what is our goal with our children? Who are we trying to raise? They only got one mom, they only got one dad. We're going to continually go back to that because the pressure from your kids, they get the pressure, you get the pressure from your kids, but you are the adult and you have to make the decision based off what is best for your children.
Absolutely.
So I think the first thing I would say is do your research. What's very helpful is there's a ton of research out there now of the impacts of phones, social media, technology on our kids. When we were growing up, we're the
guinea pigs.
Yeah. And really the generation after us was really the guinea pigs. We were 16 when we got phones.
Sure. 15,
didn't have
16.
internet on our phones or anything like that. So, so many of you guys had internet when you were a child. And so there's tons of research and studies that have been done on the detriment of that. 2 books I would recommend, The Anxious Generation and Bad Therapy. We'll link it in the show notes. And there's also a ton. There's another resource that my dad actually came up with of just resources and articles and things like that of just what is happening. Right. So do your research. Don't just make a decision because Jimmy got a phone and now your son or daughter wants a phone, or, well, they can do this and I can't do it and I feel left out. Be the adult.
Yes. I want to interject right there because I feel like we can't emphasize this enough. We see this now. Our oldest is 9 years old. Yeah. And William talked about the pressure that kids feel from each other and other kids and the pressure your kids put on you. There's also pressure from our peers, from other parents who have already decided to give their kids phones or, technology, gaming stuff, different things, or vice versa. So there's a huge element of, as parents, you and your spouse being on the same page, doing that research together, and seeing why everything we're talking about, the effects of those, just how they can be absolutely detrimental to your child, and being able to make your decision based off that. It's not that they're never going to have a phone or they're never going but the ways and the timing that's best introducing them to it and that would be best for them. So I just want to say, it is felt amongst parents. I don't think parents say that a lot. The parents that or the pressure that you feel from other parents making those decisions, and it really plays a role into our decision. Yeah, and bring your community into that. We've talked about this, right? Of having time where all of our friends get together. Let's talk about these things, right? We're all kind of dealing with it. What are you guys doing? Yeah, what have y'all tried? Because I'll tell you, one of the best things is when your kids' friends are going through the same thing, you're all making that decision together. And there's a big emphasis for, no phones until 8th grade, right? That's a big thing that a national kind of campaign that kind of happens, initiative. And
Because hey, if we all do this together, it becomes a heck of a lot easier than me fighting against everybody else. But if you got to fight against everybody else, it's worth it. It's still worth it, right? And I'd say another thing that my dad brought up, and our kids don't have phone yet, when they do, is coming up with a contract for your kids, for you and your kids. And I'm going to read the things that are on this contract, and I'll link this as well, because I think it's great. Because even though if you do give them something, you are still in control of it, right? And so the things that are on here, number 1, mom and dad have the final say on your use of technology until you are 18. 2, create, don't just consume, because there's benefits to technology and phones and all that. Number 3, real life is better than any photo, status update, story, or video you'll ever find online. Number 4, you should be in full control of the technology at your fingertips. It should not control you. I think we all need to hear that a little bit. Number 5, don't say anything through your phone that you wouldn't say in person. Number 6, don't use this device to view/share inappropriate photos or videos of others or of yourself. Number 7, only post a message, photo, or video if you want the entire world to have access to it forever. Number 8, always answer calls from mom and dad. Number 9, be where you are. Use good phone etiquette at meals, movies, on a date, etc. Number 10, learn to put away your phone and overcome the uncomfortable feeling of striking up a conversation with those around you. I think that's probably true for adults and children. But the idea is, man, have control, have an agreement. Yeah. Literally make this a contract and have your kids sign it. Post it somewhere. Bring up the principles. Hold the line. All the things.
That is huge. There's a lot to that. And I think, one other big piece here, unpopular piece here, and a challenge for all of us, if we're being honest, is we as parents, you as parents, you all as future parents, model what your kids are going to do. Mm-hmm. So if your kids see you on your phone all the time, grandparents, if they see you on your phone all the time, you have very little foundation and basis for why you tell them they can't be on the phone. Correct. Or TV all of the time. Yeah. So, and that's challenging, right? Because we use our phone for a lot of things. Sure. But we have a principle at home that we have a drawer that we put our phone away once we get home, and it's family time. It's not, social media or check email time or whatever. To hold that principle so that our kids see us doing what we're teaching them and telling them. Yeah. And they will be the first to call you out and say, well, you're on your phone. Well, you did this. And they're not wrong. They call us out too much. It's embarrassing. Yeah, it really is. And it's such a humbling reality check. Sure. For us. So I think the challenge here more, and the insecurity as parents that we deal with when we try to answer and address this problem, is what we're modeling. Yeah. So I think if you kind of shift your mindset of yourself, what you're teaching your kids passively, then when you have these conversations, when you write these contracts and you hold them to it, you have such a better foundation and chance that they want to listen to why you say what you say. Yeah, that's good. Yep. Big topic, but. Yep. Okay. Next question. All right. What are wise boundaries when it comes to your husband, wife, having friends of the opposite sex? Maybe talk about if you were friends beforehand or something like that. Do you just drop them as a friend, even if they were your best friend of the opposite sex and now your partner? Or is there a way to have and maintain a loving relationship with that person, with a dating, marriage, that type of thing? Sure. I think there is kind of different times that this becomes more of a thing, right? Uh-huh. So when you first start dating or when you first get married, right? Before you maybe had more single friends of the opposite sex, right? This can be like a big tension point because, I was really close to this person and then now, not so much anymore. How does this play out? And then the other side of it is as you're older, like, what are the safe boundaries that you need to put into place? And so I'd say there's generally kind of two sides to it, two kind of approaches. One is what is often referred to as the Billy Graham rule. It's like, I will not be around another person of the opposite sex
in any way, shape, or form. I will not be in a meeting solo with them. I will not be in an elevator with them. I will not be at a meal with them, whatever the case is. That's like the one extreme. The other side of it is, no, there isn't no boundaries. It's like we're just friends, all the things. The question I ask myself is, which one's the safer option? Which one is going to lead to a problem potentially?
Sure.
Most likely the second option, right? So I don't follow like Billy Graham rule to a T, but I have those things placed in my life. Hey, I'm not going to, like I work with a bunch of girls, right? So if I meet with them, I'm meeting them in a public place, or I'm meeting them in a place that I know other people are there, right? I'm not going to meet with them in private. I'm not going to be communicating with them in private. And I'd say from a friendship standpoint, like we are friends with them. Like, yeah. It is not I'm friends with this person or you're friends with that person. We are friends with them.
Yeah. And I would say, especially in that, like William talked about, that early phase, when you're meshing friend groups or you're just getting married, like the dynamics do change, like of your relationship and of your friendships and things like that. So it does or should become our friends, and the people that you hang out with and that type of thing. So...
Yeah, exactly. So, I'd say, is it possible to be friends with somebody of the opposite sex? 100%. But you and your spouse should be friends with them. It's just, the reality is things change, and that's okay. Yep. That's good.
Yep.
But being okay with what changes and how those relationships change.
Yep.
So
great answer.
All right. Well, thank you guys. That's it for today. You guys have a great day. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week for our last episode.
Yes.
Just kind of crazy.
Thank you again for the feedback, for the encouragement. But we love your questions. Please keep sending them in. We want to answer them best we can.
And remember, you can text your questions in to 94000. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.